Hello everyone, welcome to part 3 of the Mammoth build. Now it may not look like there's been a significant amount of progress, but there has been a good bit, just that you can't really see it at first glance. And the next step is going to be, well, the next step of getting the wheels on, there's quite a lot that needs to happen. I don't want it to be too much of a jump. So this one shouldn't be too much, well, a very long video, but it's just a bit of an update really, just to get you kind of flowing on what's been happening. So everything is connected, all the electrics at the moment. It's all messy because it doesn't need to be tiny at the minute, but the board that I showed you, the circuit board I showed you in part 2, is all up and connected. And the main differences are that the gearbox servo is connected. Also, the drive shafts are connected as well. And yeah, the steering's all up and running. We also have the wheel hubs all in place on both sides. I'm not going to turn it over because it's a heavy rig. And with the hubs being installed, you have these little metal rods, which are part of the tension of the A-arms here. So I haven't got to that bit at the moment. What I'm going to talk about is the gearbox servo. Now, the one on the MC, very similar setup. I had this servo lying around. Rather than buying a cheaper, lower powered servo, I thought I'd use one, save some money. This was a nightmare to set up on the MC. One, because I've never done it before. Two, because it's buried in the chassis. Now, one thing with this is that obviously the motor and the servo, I say obviously, if you haven't got an MC, you wouldn't know, but they're further down and it's much harder to get to it. This is much easier to make adjustments. It is a right faff trying to do it on the MC, and it took a lot of fiddling. This time it's pretty easy. It's pretty much the same setup, so I use the same travel on the radio, just set up a new model. It is working. So that's in crawler gear. This is in. There's quite a difference between speed, crawler gear, top gear. So that's working lovely. Servo's not stressing, there's the right amount of travel on it. Superb. I had a rather testing time yesterday over the weekend, trying to get these sorted. Now, inside these hubs here, you've got the outer bearing, which you can see the drive shaft goes through. You've also got a much bigger inner bearing that sits in here, which keeps the drive shaft from falling back out. Now, on 6 of the hubs, the bigger bearing went in no problem. 2 of them, it was an absolute nightmare because the bearing just wouldn't go in. Now, I've spoken to Simon about this. He's had the same issue with his, but he said no one else report the same thing. I had to take quite a bit of paint off on the inside of 2 of these to get the bearing in. And even then, the bearing's quite tight, so if it gets muddy and mucky inside, getting it out might be a bit of a mission. Now, Simon's confirmed this, and I think he's correct in this, is that the tolerances are really quite fine, and it's just the amount of paint that's been put on. I think on 2 of them, unfortunately, there's just been more paint put on the others. You know, if they don't come out easily, then I'll have to just heat them up and try and drill them out if I can. There's ways and means. Slightly frustrating, but that's the only issue I've come across with this build so far. The rest of it has been absolutely spot on. So I think for the hubs, I can't remember which one it was. I think it's this one of the fronts and one of the rears that I had an issue with. So yeah, that was a slight problem, a slight issue, but you know, not terrible at all. You know, was able to deal with it, and you know, just a bit of kind of sanding and a bit of grinding away to try and, you know, carefully to try and get the bearing to fit okay. So yeah, that was a bit testing. The servos work fine. Not sure if you can see them. Let's try. This thing is just, so the servo arm is sitting in there, and the second one, so you can see them, they're both going the same way. So that's perfect. The circuit board's working fine. The circuit board has been coated, waterproof coating, so that's all good. Importantly, the electronics are working fine. That's not letting me down. So here we have these little rods. So the next step's going to be there is an adjustment here. So you clamp those rods, or you put another clamp on the outside and screw it on. Before you tighten them up, there is like an adjustment, I don't know what you'd call it. Like there's one for standard and one for soft. And as I understand it, it kind of clips on here somewhere. Now, I'm going to go through that in the next part 4 once I've done it. Because I haven't done it, I'm not going to get the bits and pieces out just to show you, because there'd be no point, right? You know, can't have everything in one video. It'd spoil it otherwise. So it clamps over here, and you can then adjust the tension of the arms. It's one thing I'm thinking as well is there's a slight bit of wobble on here, a slight bit of flex. Now it said that a little washer can go in there, but I couldn't get it to fit. The washer that it said, it just would not go in. So I assumed maybe it was for the plastic kit where there's a little bit more flex, but it just wouldn't go in. So there is a little bit, just in that, there's a little bit of play. But I couldn't get the washer in there. It's a little tiny one and it just wouldn't go in. I guess there's supposed to be a bit of play, right? Because things need to move, needs to be some give. If you did manage to get your bearing in there and you've watched it, then let me know and I will have another go, but don't know. So once the tension has been set, it then looks like in the manual you've got to do the steering. Now the steering looks quite complicated. It's like an outer system. There's like an arm that screws in here. And yeah, I don't know because I haven't done it. Again, I want to go through it and then I will talk you through any issues I had or any tips and tricks. So that will be next. And then after that, there's an arm that goes on the back here. It sits here out of this hole here. And I've seen on videos, it's like a rocker arm. It's got bearings installed in it already. And it allows the rears to go up and down. If you notice, there's no tension rods on the back, so there's a rear suspension difference, so I'll go over that in the next video as well. So yeah, there's only been one frustration, which is the bearings in the hubs, but you know, one of those things. I was a bit annoyed last night, but I've become less annoyed as it's gone on. So it was just, I think yesterday I tried to do it all in one go, and one of those jobs I got halfway through and thought I can't leave bits everywhere, I've got to complete it, and I should have just given it a rest and come back to it. Never mind. One thing I will say about this, getting these in, putting the drive shafts in, it's all a bit fiddly because they screw in here. There's like a 4-way screw system. You can just see one of the screws here. And what I probably should have done actually is put those on first and then built it up as I went along. I think you can do that. It probably would have been easier rather than trying to slot the whole thing on, because everything was just falling out and trying to getting this balanced, getting this off the table. It was all getting a bit fidgety and it was just a bit annoying. So yeah, and these, as I was trying to line it up, these kept falling out, and yeah, it's probably the most fiddly bit I've done so far, getting those in and out. In terms of maintenance, because that's something that I have brought up before and is a concern of mine, you know, getting the axles out. There are 4, I'm not going to turn it over because there are 4 bolts with a chassis plate, and you can just, in theory, they just drop out. So you take the grub screws out of the drive shafts and they drop out, but of course they can't drop out because these are in here. Now, I'm thinking that if I just unbolt this bolt here so I can drop these down, I should be able to hopefully then pull the drive shafts out. So if I unbolt it here, I don't have to take this whole mechanism off, I should be able to pull them out. Don't know, haven't thought about logistics of that, but it might be a better way of doing it than unbolting the whole arm. Again, people that have done this may be able to tell me that's not the way you can do it. I haven't tried it, so that's just my thought so far, is that, you know, take this off, this arm off, a couple of bolts, pull it out, undo the grub screws, undo the bolts that hold the axle on, and the whole thing should drop away. Voila, you can get to the axles, which isn't too much more of a faff, I don't think, from the sounds of it. than it is on the MC. It's never going to be an easy thing to work on something like this because it's big. And we're getting on, it's weighty now. I'm getting on to the point that picking it up one-handed, now everything's installed like this, is becoming a bit of a challenge. So yeah, that's the update. The next time you'll see it, I'm planning to have the wheels on and the steering set up and the suspension set up. So it should be quite a bit of progress. And then of course, if everything is working as it should be, we might have a little run in the garden of just the chassis. So it's progressing faster than I expected it to, but I'm getting bored of delaying it. While I've got time, I'll do it. Things will slow down now because it's midweek and I'm working. I'm doing this in my lunch hour. And then by the time evening comes, I don't always feel like fiddling around building stuff. But yes, it's getting there. So slowly but surely, all good, hopefully no more issues, and thank you all for watching. I hope you're enjoying following this build, and there'll be an update soon, and we'll speak again soon. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe, and again, be nice to each other and stay safe, folks. Speak to you soon. Bye for now.